So Bodie, I had the opportunity to go watch the new Superman movie this weekend. You know, the one by James Gunn, and if I'm honest, man, it was actually pretty good. It was very good. I don't know, have you had the opportunity to see it yet?
No, might go see it this weekend.
It's really good. I still think that Superman, the original, or what is it called? Superman, the movie, which is the original one with Christopher Reeve. That is, I don't want to say by far, that is, in my opinion, the best one. And for me, I probably would even put Superman 2 as number 2. But this comes in right at a number 3, maybe a number 4 of all the Superman movies that have come out. And it seems like the people have thought it was pretty good as well, because it made $220 million the very first weekend. So that got me thinking, that's a lot of money. I wonder how much it costs to make this movie. So the production budget was $225 million. And I'm like, that's pretty good. They made almost all the money back in the first weekend. So clearly by weekend 2, it's going to trounce that. But then I thought, oh, wait a minute. That's just the production budget. That doesn't include marketing and promotion. So I went and actually looked that up, and believe it or not, man, the marketing budget for this movie was $200 million. So that's like, it actually was 200 million plus. So that's like 90% of what it cost to make the movie is what they spent on it. And the other thing that kind of stood out to me about that is that the first big trailer for the new Superman movie, it came out all the way back in December of last year. I think it was December 19th, right before the Christmas. So they started promoting this movie darn near 7 months before the movie actually aired. So 90% of what it cost to make the movie, they spent to market the movie. And then they started marketing in a full 7 months before people were able to watch it. So they just kind of got me to thinking about podcast marketing is something that comes up all the time. Podcast promotion. As you know, I've been doing this for 19 years. And over that time, I've had hundreds of conversations. I've probably had thousands of them. And if I think back on all the conversations, I cannot remember a single time when somebody said, you know what, Rob, a problem I have is that I just keep creating these podcasts and putting them out, and people just keep listening to them. I don't have to do any work. I just post it, and thousands of people come and listen to my show. That conversation has never happened. The other side of the conversation happens all the time. However, it's like, whether it's been somebody who's been podcasting as long or longer than me, or more specifically, folks who are kind of new to it. It's like, I created this show, but how do I get people to listen to it? It's a struggle that I would say almost every podcaster has at some point. So the problem is that most people aren't truly promoting their show. So if I were to go and ask and do a survey of folks when they say, yeah, I'm having a hard time getting people to find my show, ask them, well, what did you do to find, for people to find your show? And the conversation usually goes something like, well, I created the show. I spent an enormous amount of time creating it, make sure it sounds good, all that kind of stuff, posted it. And then I created a social media post and I put it out. And I'm expecting significantly more things to come after that, but they almost never do. So it's like you literally created a podcast. You spent 10, 20, 40, 60 hours creating the podcast. And then you spent 10, 15, 20 minutes thinking of a social media post. And that's all the promotion. That's all the marketing that you get. And honestly, when you just post on social media, hey, new episode's up, that's not even a promotion. That is just an announcement. So I've come to the conclusion that folks are spending not nearly enough time truly marketing and promoting their shows. And that if you want to be effective at it, you need to spend way more time doing it. There's a popular quote by Abraham Lincoln where he says that if I had an hour to cut down a tree, I'd spend the first 45 minutes sharpening the axe. And that's kind of what it should be like for podcasting, particularly when you're first starting out. People don't perceive this or realize this, but they should honestly be spending half of their time or more just marketing the content as compared to creating the content. And that's usually very, very rarely the way that it goes. You'll spend 99% of your time creating the content, 1% of your time promoting the content, or at least announcing the content, and then wonder why you're not getting the traffic that you had hoped to get.
Yeah. And I'll add to that a little bit that Warner Brothers, obviously, they're going to spend way more money than we ever will in a lifetime of podcast marketing and producing a movie. But they have people who know how to market. Marketing, I don't think for the vast majority of people, I don't think that is a thing that comes naturally. So, Rob, you have some tips on making this not to say more natural, but more effective. And I would start off, and this isn't in the notes or anywhere, but I would start off with if you only have a social media following of 3 people across 5 platforms, and you just post one post for your show, you're not really reaching the audience you want. Warner Brothers has done market research. They know exactly which platforms to go to get the results that they want. So what can people like us do who don't have that kind of a budget? What can we do where it wouldn't cost us very much money?
The first thing, and I've got 5 tips here. They all work pretty well. And for the most part, they're free. You don't have to spend any money on them. And I'm not necessarily giving these in any particular order, although the first one, the first one probably is the one that should be number 1 because it shows up in 3 of the remaining 4. But the first one is just word of mouth. Bodie, you've been doing this a long time, so you probably perceive this as well. People don't tell you about their podcast. We probably know people who have podcasts and don't know they have podcasts, which is a big problem. One of the things that I always say when I'm talking to folks about their shows, that if you want someone to listen to your show, you got to tell them about it. In fact, I say that, if you want your show to grow, tell someone about it at every opportunity that is not inappropriate to do so. So I think of it of like a commercial. You don't perceive a commercial the first time you see it unless the commercial is just absolutely excellent. Like there's Super Bowl commercials that you only need to see them one time, they're memorable because they're Super Bowl commercials and literally millions of dollars are spent on them. But regular everyday type of commercials, you don't even perceive that you've seen a commercial until you've probably seen it 3 to 7 times. And then between 3 to 7 times, you'll determine whether or not you like the commercial. And then it's by time, 7 to 10 that you determine whether or not the thing that you see the commercial for is something that you're interested in, or you either start to hate the commercial. But it takes a minute. When it comes to most podcasters and telling people about their show, we will say it one time and then assume that if someone doesn't listen, well, I told them about it, they must not care because they didn't listen. And the truth of that matter is that they didn't even perceive that you told them about it because it sounded like it was a commercial when you told them. So they need to hear the message over and over again. So I am a big proponent of telling people about your show as often as you possibly can. You can see, Bodie, I'm wearing a shirt today that says, "Ask me about my podcast." Why? Because it makes it easy to strike up conversations about my podcast. Guess what happens when I wear this t-shirt or one of the other 5 that I have that are similar to it out in public? People randomly ask me about my show. It just got to happen. It's like, hey, tell me about your show. And that just gives me the opportunity to tell people about my show. And I know folks will think of things like, well, I don't want to be obnoxious with it. I don't want to seem like I'm coming on too strong. So that's why I say, well, don't do it when it's inappropriate to do it. I wouldn't be talking about my podcast at somebody's wedding. At that point, that thing is about them. I wouldn't be talking about my podcast at a funeral. But whenever it is not inappropriate to talk about my podcast, that's when I want to talk about it. So word of mouth is arguably one of the easiest ways that you can do it. And one of the tips to remember, if you are going to tell people about your show, you've got to make it easy for a new listener, someone who may be new to podcast, to actually listen to your show. You never just want to say, oh, just go and find my show wherever your show exists. You got to show them how to find it. So, I tend to keep a QR code that'll send you right to a link page. That all you can do is click on a link that's going to have that show play in whatever player you have on your device. And I make sure that those links always work for at least 3 of the podcast players that are out there. Number 1 for me would be YouTube. If you got, video, you want to make sure that YouTube is probably the thing you're primarily promoting, but people listen to podcasts there as well. So YouTube, make it easy for people to get to YouTube or YouTube Music, make it easy for people to get to Apple Podcasts, and then also make it easy for people to get to Spotify. If they're using something other than one of those 3 things, they'll know what to do. You just need to tell them about it and they can kind of go find it. But don't assume that everybody just automatically knows how to go and find your podcast simply because you told them about it.
And I would add to that, Rob, don't just tell them about it. Like, Tech John is a show focused on tech from a Black perspective, but tell them why they should listen. It's people are selfish. And this isn't to say that it's a bad thing, but they want to know, what are they going to get out of it by listening to your podcast? And if you can give them a compelling reason to listen, they're going to listen.
Bodie, if I actually had put notes in there about that, I'd say you were reading them, because that is exactly the thing that you need to do. People don't listen to your show because you make it sound cool. They listen to your show because it sounds cool to them. So you have to give them a reason to listen. So ultimately, they want to know, what am I going to get out of it if I listen to this show? And if you can get them there by, if you listen to this show, you're going to get X, Y, and Z out of it. And here's how X, Y, and Z benefits you. That's when you get a listener, not just telling them that the show is available and now they can go and listen to it.
All right, Rob. So we've talked about 2 different ways of promoting your show. What's the third way?
Social media. So social media is a big one. In fact, when you look at most surveys, social media is always at the top of the list as far as how people say they find shows. The interesting thing is also, from a podcaster's perspective, the way that people say is least effective at having people find their show. And the reason for this, I'll go back to what I said before, is that people don't actually promote their show. They announce their show. So, Bodie, I don't know if you're familiar with Krispy Kreme, but it is a donut place that we have. I want to say it's nationwide, but it's not in every state. But one of the cool things about Krispy Kreme is that they have a sign that just says fresh and hot. And whenever that sign is red, it's a neon sign in the window, you know that they have fresh and hot donuts. Now, that sign means nothing to anyone who's never been to Krispy Kreme before. So they're not really doing a promotion. They're just kind of letting you know, hey, if you're in the mood for a donut and you know what Krispy Kreme is like, you can come in and you can get one fresh right out of the grease. I say that when you do a podcast announcement, it's kind of like if you were to drive past the mall. Most people who drive past the mall never actually go to the mall. They literally are just driving past it. And you announcing that your podcast is available wherever your podcasts are available, it's kind of like a sign in the parking lot of the mall saying we have clothes. If you are already on your way to the mall and they're going to buy clothes and that sign has a sale on it, then maybe somebody will come by your store, but it's generally not going to change behavior because folks weren't going to buy clothes in the first place. So one of the things you have to do with social media is make sure that you are, once again, giving someone a reason to listen. Don't just say that my show is available right now. Give someone a reason. Give someone a reason as to why they would listen to the show. What are they going to get from it? Another thing you can do, and this is once you have multiple episodes, is that you can answer social media questions with content. So if someone is asking about how do I actually get more people to listen to my show, and you've done an episode on 5 ways to promote your podcast, instead of just replying and saying, do these 5 things, you can say, hey, I did a podcast episode where we go into detail about it. Here's the 5 things, but if you want more, go check my show out. That is giving someone a reason to go check your show out based off of a question that they asked, not you just letting them know that your show is available.
Yeah, and you're also helping them out. You're being without expecting anything in return, which is kind of like one of the content creators' biggest balances that you have to do. Is you want people to listen to your show, but you also don't want to be overbearing. So if you say, hey, look, I answered this question over here, people are going to be more likely to want to interact with your content. Brian Brushwood of Modern Rogue and a bunch of other things, he told a story on one of his podcasts. They did this study, and people were, I think, in a museum, and there were actors, and then there were study participants that didn't know that they were in the study. And during this, people were looking at different types of art, and they had one group of people that said, hey, I'm going to go get a soda. Do you want one? And those people said, no, I'm good. And there's another group where they just got them a soda and then handed it to them. These are perfect strangers. And the group at the end of the art museum event, people asked, hey, I have a band. Do you want to come to my band? And the people who were asked, do you want a soda, mostly said no. But people were more likely to go to the person's band event at the end when someone just got them a soda and handed it. And it's like, hey, I got this for you. So
reciprocity is a real thing, man.
Yeah, there's a real benefit to it.
It's a real benefit. And you're not playing anyone by doing it. It's like you genuinely are offering someone a soda. And if they drink the soda, that's great. But then if you let them know what you were going to let them know, regardless whether they drink the soda or not, that, hey, I've got a band playing on Saturday. Would you like to come hear them? the reciprocity works. You definitely will capture more people to come to the thing that you asked them to do if you've already done something for them. Because I don't even want to say people don't want to feel like they owe you something, but people feel like when you've done them a solid, they want to do you a solid. It's just they just want to return the favor. So
right.
that seems like that would absolutely work.
All right. What's next, Rob?
So another good way, a really good way to increase your listenership, to promote your show, is to do it on someone else's show. Now, I will I will say do this with caution, because you have to approach your guest opportunities strategically. It is not hard to find podcasters who are looking for someone to just show up on their show. They don't ask any questions about who you are. They don't ask any questions about what you talk about. They just know they got a show that's going up at 7:00. It's maybe a live stream and they don't have enough guests. And hey, I'm doing a show at 7. Would anybody like to come and join my show? And you will see a lot of other podcasters will say, sure, I will go up and show up for that show. I'm not telling people not to do that. I'm just saying expect what you're going to get when you do that. If you went onto a show that has nothing to do with what you talk about, and you're just generally there answering questions, you're not even necessarily being interviewed. You're more of on a panel of people to where you're just talking about a topic. If that topic is not in your area of expertise, you can't expect that people are going to just, oh, by the way, come and check out this thing that's completely different than the thing we just talked about on this podcast. So I say that guest hosting or guest appearances on a podcast, they can do wonders to grow your listenership. I would say it's one of the fastest ways to do it. If you do it strategically. So if you are, in our case, if we're going on a show where it's not an exact same niche that you're in, or niche, however you want to say that, but it's similar, it's related, and your content relates to what that other niche is that you're going on that show about. And you're going to go, for example, we're talking about today, ways to increase the number of people who are going to come by and listen to your show, ways to effectively promote your show. And if that is what you're being interviewed about, or if that is what you're talking about, one of the easy ways to get people to follow you is, number one, just be good. Actually have a clue as to what it is you're talking about. Be engaging. Make that guest host, or I should say, make that host, as the guest, make the host look good if you can. And then give the people a reason to come and listen to you. So if you're going to walk through 5 steps of how to do X, Y, Z, when you get that opportunity to do your call to action, actually do a true call to action. Have already prepared a cheat sheet or a list and say, hey, I just told you about the 5 things that you need to do, but we know that you are driving or riding a bike or walking or exercising or cleaning or whatever. If you'd like to get this list with a little bit of detail, just go check out and give them a URL they can go to where they can now download that list. And of course, when they get that list, there's going to be a link to your podcast where they can go and they can listen to you talk about those topics in detail.
Yeah, that's a really good one. The biggest thing is when you go on somebody else's show is you want to be prepared. I mean, there's plenty of shows out there where there's no agenda. But if you show up to a show that has an agenda and has topics and you're not prepared, it's going to shine through. And you really, like Rob said, like the best way to get me to have you back on my shows is to be a productive and helpful guest. And you're coming back every single time you want to come back.
So one of the other things that I strongly recommend that people do when it comes to, making your show more easily findable, when it comes to promoting your show, you won't necessarily think of this as a promotion strategy, but it really is, because ultimately the goal for promotion is to get people to be aware of you and to come and listen to or watch your show. So this one is effective podcast titles and descriptions. And on some lists, this might be first, because this is something that you can do before you even press record. You can literally set up a good description for your show. You can set up a good title for your show before you ever record a single episode. So I'll give you an example. There are shows out there, and the show could be The John Wayne Show. The John Wayne Show, unless you are the actual John Wayne, the actor, and people know who you are and what you talk about, the name John Wayne doesn't necessarily bring a listener to you, because someone may not necessarily be looking for John Wayne. Now, if you're John Wayne and you talk about effective strategies for solopreneurs when it comes to doing your taxes, then you might want to actually have a title like effective tax strategies for solopreneurs, because people are actually looking for those keywords. Now you can name that your show. You could say, that's the name of your show with John Wayne, if you really want to have your name in it. But the goal is at the front of that title to actually have keywords for what your show is about. If for whatever reason you can't do it, at the very top of your show, you at least want to do it in the description. The description is not nearly as good as doing it in the title, but the description works as well. And then the other thing is to actually think about search engine optimization, or at least a app for listening to your podcast optimization when you are creating individual episodes. So think about the name of the show. You don't want to be clever. You want to call the show what people might actually search for. Because if someone opens up their podcast app and they're looking for something specifically, if someone is looking to, if you're looking for a YouTube video on how to change a sump pump, you're not looking for a person's name that changes sump pumps. You're looking for, how do I change a sump pump? So you want to actually have those words in your title. You definitely want to have those words in your descriptions, and then individual episode titles as well. You want to make sure that you are using as descriptive titles as you possibly can. And I would even go as far to rename shows. This is something that I've been recommending to people a lot lately, because when you think about the name of the show, if your show is the John Wayne Show, I really like the John Wayne Show. I don't want to, that's my name. I don't want to change it. We've already got 50 episodes. The question is, are people finding your episodes? If the answer is no, then you might want to do something different. Changing the name of your show does not mean that you're changing the show artwork for your show. So someone looks at your show artwork, they may still see the John Wayne Show. But if they look for the name of your show, Effective Strategies for Solopreneurs, at tax time, that will come up in their search, and then they will find the John Wayne Show. Now, what you need to do in your show artwork is make sure that you've actually put enough of your keywords there that if they see your logo, they see your podcast artwork, that it will still capture them, and they're still thinking about, oh, how do I actually find some effective tax strategies? But changing your show name and definitely adding in descriptions into your show description can do wonders for allowing people to just find your show organically.
And I will add to that, and this is something that gets overlooked, is throw some metadata into your audio file or video file. There's apps or services like Auphonic that make it easy to add metadata. And depending on what you're using, there's a variety of different ways to do this, but it helps in discoverability.
Oh, absolutely.
and searches. So in some cases, like I use Acast for this show and for my other shows, there's a limit to the amount that I can include in an Acast description. I can add more things that I think would help with search and discoverability in the metadata itself. You don't want to overwhelm, you want to be too heavy-handed with the metadata, but you can actually help improve your rankings when somebody searches for something in these massive databases. So that's another way to kind of help yourself out. And you're already doing it anyway, so you might as well just add it to the metadata.
Right. So, Bodhi, the last way that I have to help people find your show, to effectively promote your show, to effectively market your show, is by setting up a newsletter or a membership community. Because one of the things that we need to continue to do is not just always market, not just always promote to new listeners. We need to continue to market, and we need to continue to promote to the listeners that we've already got to keep them coming back. So one of the things that I strongly recommend, we go back to my Superman movie analogy, to where that movie started doing trailers almost 7 months before the movie aired this past weekend. You can create a newsletter the moment you have the idea to create a podcast, and immediately start collecting names of people who would be interested in your podcast and letting them know, hey, I'm working on a podcast. It's going to be coming out around this date. But I'm going to keep you informed and let you know what's going on. And kind of as you are building your podcast in public via your newsletter, you are now building anticipation. You're building a list of who you can launch to. Same thing with the membership community. You wouldn't necessarily start your membership community before the podcast exists. You can kind of do that if you've already got a following in a newsletter, or maybe your strong following on social media. But definitely when you launch your podcast, if you have a membership community, if you've got a Patreon, if you've got a Substack, if you've got some way that people are able to interact with you more so than just sending you text messages or sending you messages on social media, that you can use that for promotion of your show. You can let folks know, hey, we've got a guest coming up on the next episode. This is what they talk about. You can actually build some anticipation for people who already listen to you on your show. The other thing is that you're not going to have 100% match of people who are subscribers to your show and people who are subscribers to your email newsletter. So you may actually have someone who's subscribed to your newsletter but doesn't listen to your show. You let them know that, hey, on this episode, we've got some, we've got, I can't remember his name, but it's Christopher Reeve's son actually had a cameo in the Superman movie. We've got him. He's going to talk about the new movie and talk about his dad and what he remembers growing up when his dad was playing Superman for the first 4 Superman movies. If that captures you, that may actually turn someone who was only a newsletter subscriber into someone who will come over and actually check your show out. So once again, use your newsletter, use your membership community to not just promote to new people, but to promote to folks who you've already gotten.
Absolutely. All right, Rob, we have 5 really good tips for marketing your show. What, if we were going to wrap this episode up, what would you give as parting words, like kind of the most important things to remember or the biggest takeaways?
Biggest takeaway is that most people need to spend an order of magnitude more time promoting and marketing their podcast than they ever have before. As I said, I have a lot of conversations about this. And it is not uncommon for someone to literally to spend 15, 20, 30 hours creating an episode and spend less than 15 minutes actually promoting that episode. The real of it is that if you've got a total of 30 hours to spend on working on your show, especially in the beginning of it, you probably want to spend 10 to 15 of it doing just promotion. If we think back to the Superman movie, $225 million to make the movie, $200 million plus to promote the movie because the movie is still being promoted. So they're still spending money to promote the movie that came out this past weekend. So we're over, we're 88% to 90% or more of the budget for the movie is just to promote the movie. I'm not saying you need to do that, but you probably do need to rethink your numbers. If you're only spending a few minutes per episode, you definitely want to go and spend more time, because the more time you spend promoting, the more people you're going to attract to your show. It's ultimately, it is a math game.
All right. I'm going to add to your metaphor, Rob, because I was like, well, I wonder how much time did it take to film the new Superman movie? So it took 5 to 6 months to film the new Superman movie, according to Gemini, right? So those numbers may vary a little bit. Of course, there's always the time that it took to write and plan out the show and all that stuff. But actual production, say 6 months, 7 months to promote, roughly the same amount of money to promote, roughly the same amount of time to promote.
Yeah, it's it is a numbers game. And I think that many new podcasters just don't perceive how much time you want to spend promoting your show. I have to be careful when I say this because I don't want people to take it the wrong way. But a great podcast, some of the best audio ever recorded with mediocre promotion does not beat a decent podcast with excellent promotion. It never does. Now, if your show is not good and you put excellent promotion into it, you might catch people up front. But once they perceive that it's not good, they're going to tell everybody this is not good. But people will go see a bad movie until they realize the movie is bad just because the promotion of the movie was excellent. And they just don't get an opportunity to come back with a second movie because nobody's going to go see a second movie when you knew that the first one was bad. So you do want to make sure your content is not subpar. It needs to be good content. But I would argue that I would rather have great marketing and good content than great content and good marketing, because more people ultimately are going to see it if your marketing is excellent.
I agree. And here's the thing. I've been doing this, at least one of my podcasts, for 8 or 9 years, coming up on 9. I don't do any of these things, Rob, and I know that I should. And you've given me 5 things to easily kind of get started. Now, we've been doing this a long time together, you and I. So I've already implemented some of these things, and I've seen, I can attest, I have seen improvements in my listenership through your tips. but it really kind of sank in with the Superman movie example that you gave, because I do spend a little bit of time promoting my show. I probably don't give it the importance that I should.
Yeah, it's like I said, anyone who's good at it will tell you it's a numbers game. The more people you get your show in front of, the more people who are ultimately going to listen to your show, as long as you make it appealing to them for them to come and listen. So just to wrap up, Bodie, we gave 5 ways. The first one was word of mouth. If you want somebody to listen to your show, tell them about it at every opportunity when it's not inappropriate to do so. Social media, don't just announce your show is available. Give someone a reason to listen. Maybe answer a question with content. Be a guest on someone's podcast, but do it with intention. Don't just show up on anybody's show for any topic. Make sure the topics are related to what you talk about. Definitely, you want to have effective podcast titles and descriptions. And then lastly, if you are building a podcast because you want people to listen to it, that's a community. Make sure you're creating a newsletter, number 1, and a membership community, possibly number 2, so that you can actually remarket to the people who you've already captured to listen.
Excellent. That's a great recap and a great way to end the show. Rob, if folks want to join our Patreon community and learn a little bit more about how we run the show and what we do behind the scenes, how would they do that?
They just need to head over to beyondthepost.fm/Patreon, and you will see that we've got a few tiers over there. You can join our patron, and that's the way you're able to become a patron and submit questions that we actually will make sure that we always answer.
Yep. It's a great way to get a behind the scenes look of how the sausage is made, and some of the things that we talk about you might be struggling with. So it's definitely something to take a look at. All right, everybody, that is it for Rob and I. Rob, this was a really good episode. Good job.
Appreciate it, man.
All right. We will talk to you next time.